Shrewd Manager Christianity's Position. Eyewitness descriptions, artwork, crease marks, and photography all place the shroud in 10th century Constantinople. Video 4.2 tells of the Mandylion, a cloth bearing Jesus' image that arrived in Constantinople in 944. It could be the Shroud of Turin under a different name. Much of what we know comes from a narrative commissioned by the emperor who received it, Constantine VII. This video shows more reasons to equate the two. First, legend says that Abgar, king of Edessa, traded letters with Jesus and ultimately received a cloth miraculously imprinted with Jesus' image. Constantine commissioned this painting of Abgar with the cloth. Abgar's face is none other than Constantine himself. Curiously, the portrait is centered on a landscape-oriented cloth. Many other depictions of the Mandylion agree. We are not the first to wonder if the cloths are identical. This book from 1902 wonders the same thing. Since the 1970s, author Ian Wilson greatly developed this hypothesis, making it his own. The obvious problem is the shroud is 14 feet long, whereas the Mandylion typically appears only about twice the head's height. To test a theory, in 1978, Wilson convinced Dr. John Jackson to photograph crease marks on the shroud. Here's what Jackson came up with. By folding along the creases in a specific sequence, not only do we see Jesus' face centered in the shallow rectangle, but the face panel is 1/8 the shroud's size. This fits a word invented in the 6th century to describe Abgar's cloth, tetradiplon, or four-doubled. The folds cross charred burn marks, so they predate the 1532 fire. Second, many copies of the Mandylion show Jesus' face framed in a large halo. This site uses UV photos and other visual tools to show that the Shroudman's face has a similar halo. Here's the site's simple conjecture. For a time, the shroud was folded and framed, exposing only the face inside a large circle. After a while, perhaps hundreds of years, inside the halo ages more than the covered part. This explains the visual evidence and reinforces the Mandylion shroud link. Third, in 1201, the head of Constantinople's imperial relic treasury wrote that, in this place, the naked Lord rises again, and the burial Sindons can prove it. Sindon is one of the words used in the Gospels for Jesus' burial cloth. French knight Robert de Cléry confirmed this a couple of years later. In Constantinople, he wrote of seeing the shroud in which our Lord had been wrapped, which every Friday raised itself upright, so that one could see the figure of our Lord on it. These eyewitnesses' descriptions fit the shroud, but also closely tie to the first recorded appearance of a new Jesus icon known as the Man of Sorrows. See these many examples. Harvard ran an exhibition on the evolution of this icon. The first part of the exhibit presents the origins of the Man of Sorrows image in the Byzantine Empire. It includes the oldest extant panel painting, dating the panel to 12th century Kastoria in modern-day Greece. These miniatures come from an 1180s Byzantine manuscript called the Four Gospels of Karahizar. Some scholars disagree about the icon's origin, but consensus seems to agree with Harvard that it began in Byzantium in the 11th century. Jackson's work on the shroud's fold marks is instructive here too. From these parallel creases, Jackson reverse-engineered a frame that could raise the cloth as described by the eyewitnesses and as portrayed in the iconography. Fourth, in 1204, the Crusaders and Venetians looted, vandalized, and captured Constantinople in one of history's most dastardly acts. In 1205, Byzantine leader Theodore Angelus wrote to Pope Innocent III, specifically protesting the theft of the most sacred of all, the linen in which our Lord Jesus Christ was wrapped after his death and before his resurrection. These are good reasons to equate the Mandylion and shroud. Not everyone agrees, however. 6 objections appear and are rebutted in this article. Let's consider 2. Some sources say the Mandylion was a small cloth imprinted with Jesus' living face. This contradicts the evidence we've seen that it's a full burial shroud imprinted with Jesus' crucified body. One source is Archdeacon Gregory's sermon welcoming the Mandylion to Constantinople. How can the clergyman present such contradictions in the same sermon? One reason might be journalistic integrity. Gregory claims he obtained his information from Edessa's archives. Maybe he simply reported what he found, leaving inconsistencies intact. Is this really so different from how internet news sites report developing stories? Later reports could contradict earlier ones, but both are kept in the same article until the final write up. Or maybe it's just a matter of what contradictions a culture is comfortable maintaining. We moderns still maintain some of our own. Consider how many tens of millions can't imagine dismembering newborns, but their single issue political aim is to legalize exactly the same thing minutes earlier in the womb. Another objection is that it's frankly fanciful to claim that tetradiplone could refer to the folded shroud. This opinion is fanciful. Tetradiplone is an invented word made up of four and doubled. By simple demonstration, it certainly can refer to folding a cloth so 1/8 is visible. Besides, we could concede the point and it wouldn't matter. Think of evidence as blocks in a Jenga game. Remove the tetradiplone block and the tower still stands. It's not structural to the case. In sum, the Shroud of Turin is very likely the same cloth and image transferred to Constantinople in 944, where it stayed until 1204. Next, we show additional intriguing evidence and call for more research.